Hello, friends. This is a bit different, isn't it? We're going to do predictions for the NFL season ahead. It is Thursday, September the 10th. Football will begin in approximately, 13 and a half hours at time of recording. It's currently just going on 12 o'clock. And it's Thursday Night Football, season opener. It's a good time. It's a good time to be a football fan. You know, first game, New York Texans taking a wee jaunt up the road, up to Kansas City. And it's a rematch of last year's divisional round against the Chiefs. So the Texans have changed a lot since that game, of course. Most people would say not for the better. Yeah. I mean, Bill Bryan's lost his mind, hasn't he? That's what everyone said. Trading away DeAndre Hopkins for David Johnson. A lot of question marks there. I said at the time it maybe wasn't quite as bad a piece of business as it first looked. It's not a good piece of business. Don't get me wrong. It's absolute garbage. But is it quite as bad as making it out to be? David Johnson is capable of really great things in both major facets of the running back game. So, if they go into a match with a game plan, they're capable of getting decent results. Brandon Cooks, Randall Cobb, yeah, fair enough, their best years might be behind them as well. But they're still capable. They're still decent players. And they've got Will Fuller. If he stays healthy, he's absolutely tremendous. The Chiefs are the Chiefs. I mean, what do you say? They've just come off winning the Super Bowl. Patty Mahomes is worth $500 million apparently. I mean, who am I to argue with that? And for the most part, their team is still as it was for last year. They've added Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who seems to be, and was touted to be, the best, or certainly the most pro-ready running back in the 2020 draft. And it looks like he's going to be ready to go from day one. So, you know, that in mind, can't really see past the Chiefs. It's got potential to be a really high-scoring game, I think. Probably not top scorer for the week. I'll go into more on that in a bit. But, final prediction, I'm going to go Chiefs by 10. I think that's probably fair. Next up, Buffalo Bills at home to the New Jersey Jets. That's right, New Jersey Jets. Bills coming off their best season of the 21st century, to be fair. They went 10-6, second in the division behind the Patriots, and it was only their second playoff appearance in the last 20 years, so, you know, pretty good for them. Their defence is solid. Trey White is getting paid. And they've now added a number one receiver, a proper number one receiver, Stephon Diggs. So I've got them predicted finishing number one in the AFC East. Sorry, Dolphins fans. I'm a complete Judas, I know. But I think they're going to be absolutely set against the Jets. They've lost their one real notable player in Jamal Adams. And, you know, it's going to take a lot more than putting a Mekhi Becton-shaped fridge in your offensive line to make Sam Darnold a good quarterback. Bills take this game by 14. The Vikings are up against the Packers, taking a short trip east, and that will be, on paper, a great game. The Vikings have lost Everson Griffin, but they've now obtained Yannick Ngakoue from the Jaguars, so, you know, probably not a net loss there. They've lost Stephon Diggs, and that could be an issue. You know, they should still have decent manpower in the ranks. They've still got Adam Thielen, who's capable of 100 yards a game, no problem. They've added Justin Jefferson in the draft. He's, you know, he looks okay. Looks like he will be good. Maybe not from day one. But, you know, they've got enough people there to let Kirk Cousins have his usual solid, unspectacular season. Packers mostly unchanged from last year. They made the NFC Championships. And, you know, that was despite Aaron Rodgers having basically no one to throw the ball to for half the season. The receivers are now pretty much back to full strength, it would seem. And, you know, even with that, who's really on their list behind Davante Adams? Difficult to tell. But they do have home field advantage, and they do have Aaron Jones. And I think it'll be a strong showing for him in this game, and that should be enough to get them the win. Packers by 3. Maybe an OT. Could see that going to OT. It's a first game for the league's newest football team, the Washington football team. They're taking on the Philadelphia Eagles at home. Now, the Potatoes were really disappointing last year. I think they were actually worse to watch than the Bungles, and the Bungles were terrible. But it's going to take a lot more than, you know, admittedly, a prodigious talent in Chase Young. It's going to take a lot more than that to fix their plethora of problems. They've lost 2 of their better players as well. Darius Geis, who's had personal issues, and Adrian Peterson, they released just last week there. You know? It's going to be a long season. If you're a Washington fan, it's going to be a really long season. The Eagles have given themselves a boost. They got Jalen Reagor in the draft. He might be injured. Well, he is injured. He might not make the first couple of weeks of the season, but, you know, he seems to be talented enough to definitely make the team better. That aside, they don't look massively dissimilar to the team that made the wild card last year, so they'll easily have enough to see off Washington, that's for sure. Jalen Hurts is a potentially good player to watch. He looks like he's going to be taking up the sort of Taysom Hill role that the Saints have had in the last couple of years, so, you know, excited to see that play out. Taysom Hill, probably one of my favourite players actually, just purely for the utility factor. Anyway, Eagles by 9. The Baltimore Ravens versus the Cleveland Browns. This, probably a tough match to predict, actually. On the one hand, you've got the Ravens, who, you know, clearly a superb team. You would expect they would do very well again this year. Lamar Jackson, maybe the most talented quarterback in the league. Sorry, Patty Mahomes, but Lamar Jackson does more. He doesn't do everything as well as Mahomes, obviously, but he does more things well, so. But yeah, I'd expect the Ravens to potentially be Super Bowl bound. And then on the other hand, you have the Browns, who they've gotten rid of Freddie Kitchens. Great stuff for them. And they have a roster that is just absolutely fantastic on paper, but they never really seem to get the job done on the field. I reckon a lot of their season is going to depend on whether Baker Mayfield can take the jump up to the next level. He needs a big step to get there. I think he's potentially there. Like, he's capable of it for sure. But will he do it? Massive question. If he can, the rest of the team have enough talent for days to, you know, they could potentially be challenging the Ravens for number 1 spot in the division. But Baker Mayfield playing as he is, or as he has been, I've got the Ravens taking it. It's potentially a very close game, like I say. Ravens by 6. The Indianapolis Colts take on, well, they're fronted, of course, by the daddy of them all, Philip Rivers. Literally the daddy of them all. He has a billion kids. They are travelling down to Florida to take on the Jacksonville Gardner Minshews. What do you mean they're called the Jags? No, it's just Gardner Minshew now. I just don't know what there is to say about Jacksonville anymore. Like, I'm recording this video, well, I wrote the script for this video at 9 AM. I'm recording it at 12. And, you know, by the time I release it this afternoon, they'll probably have released 3 or 4 players. Like, if I speak about anyone, they'll trade them. So, Gardner Minshew, sorry, you're probably going to be gone by the time the season actually starts. I'm sorry. But, all you can really say is right now they look like a team completely and utterly devoid of talent. And it looks like they're taking up arms to go to tank war with Washington. But this leads to the good questions. Is it going to be Trevor Lawrence? Is it going to be Justin Fields at number 1? More to the point, though, Trey Lance had a freshman season with 42 touchdowns and 0 interceptions. And no one is talking about him in this number 1 conversation. I just don't understand it. Just can't understand why more people aren't talking about Trey Lance. 42 touchdowns, no interceptions. For me, on the basis of that, that's a serious potential. As far as the Colts go, Phillip Rivers, massive upgrade at quarterback for them. He's old, but he's still good. He'll be more than serviceable for them, and they'll have enough to beat the Jags. As I think will everyone else in the league, to be honest. I've got the Colts by 17. The Oakland... Las Vegas Raiders next. Hosted by the Carolina Panthers. Freshly removed, of course, from the Cam Newton era. The Raiders needed help at wide receiver. And they drafted Henry Ruggs. So that should help get Derek Carr back to something akin to form, if not form. And you can expect a good number of highlight reel plays there. The Panthers have taken on Teddy Bridgewater after he had a 5-game cameo for the Saints last year and did really well. They've easily got the best halfback in the league in CMC. But, and it's a big but, they've lost Luke Kuechly. And I don't understand how a team can lose Luke Kuechly and do well. But at the same time, the Raiders I don't expect to do particularly well either. So both teams will probably struggle to keep scores down. And I see the Panthers taking it by 3. Detroit versus Chicago. The Lions take on the Bears. Oh my. At Ford Field. The Bears have named Mitch Trubisky as a starter. Press F to pay respects in the chat. But, in all seriousness, Mitch Trubisky, this is his last season to prove himself. And now he's got Nick Foles breathing down his neck. Nick Foles is not a massively great quarterback, but he's probably better than Mitch Trubisky. And I think it's going to be very, very difficult for Trubisky to pull the kind of play out of his backside that he's going to need to make sure he maintains a job. Their defence is going to be solid as ever. What do you expect is the Bears? The Lions will have Matt Stafford back to full strength, after he literally broke his back carrying the team last year. They've made good moves at running back, so, they're not going to be entirely relying on carry on. I can't carry on! I've hurt myself! Johnson. They've got DeAndre Swift, who I genuinely really hoped the Dolphins would get a few picks later. And they have just signed in the last few days Adrian Peterson. So that's solid. I think they've got enough to beat Chicago. Lions by 7. The Atlanta Falcons hosting the Seattle Seahawks next. If the Falcons could put a defense together that even remotely matches the talent in their offense, we would have Super Bowl champions for the next 3 years. I say that with no hyperbole. Their offense is just incredible at the moment. Matt Ryan, Superb. He'll be good for his normal 4,500 yards. You've got Jones, Ridley, stretching the field. Yeah, perfect. Todd Gurley, sleeper pick for addition of the season for me. He had such a down year last year. Let's not forget, a down year for him is 14 touchdowns. Like, for people to be sleeping on Todd Gurley is unreal to me. I think he's got potential for a huge bounce back and 25 plus touchdowns. On the other hand, the Seahawks, they're looking more like a team that, obviously they're still run first, but they're looking more and more like they're willing to pass the ball. Great stuff. We like to see Russell Wilson passing the ball. He's very good at football. They've got DK Metcalf. They've got Tyler Lockett. Really good tandem. They've also re-signed Josh Gordon. Now, Josh Gordon, will the league reinstate him? Question 1. Will he be any good if and when they do? Question 2. If the answer to both those questions is yes, the Seahawks are in fantastic shape. They've got a really strong attack in all facets of the game. They've got a really strong defense. And they've got enough for the win here, I think. Seahawks by 7. Okay. Now it's time for a rant. Because next up is my beloved Miami Dolphins against the absolute ballsack of the league that are the New England Patriots. It's been a horrendous 20 years to be a Dolphins fan. We've just kept an absolute stasis of complete mediocrity, and they've ridden Tom Brady to 6 championships. It's not what you want to see from your divisional rival, and it's been tough to watch. But no more. No more shall this be the case. Dolphins have made wholesale changes to their team. We've really bolstered both offense and defense between the draft and free agency. So, last year's tank for Tua mission, mixed results, I would say. Didn't entirely go to plan because, Brian Flores managed to make a shell of a team good enough to get 5 wins. And I mean a shell of a team. There was pretty much nothing left. We were like 2020 Jacksonville levels of, who's left. Thanks, Dor. So, yeah. The tank for Tua mission went not as well as it might have, from the point of view that we won some games. So that's got to be good, right? We still got Tua, because Tua got injured and fell to number 5, where we were, of course, waiting for him. Anyway, we got a couple of really nice pieces in the draft. We got Austin Jackson, Robert Hunt for the offensive line. They're going to be fantastic. We re-signed Xavier Howard, and he's now going to be playing alongside Byron Jones, who also got paid, by the way. And we also drafted Noah Igbenogany as our third cornerback. It's a good lineup. I mean, we're not going to be getting torched by too many offenses with them. You've got Shaq Lawson, Emmanuel Ogbah behind the defensive line. Superb. They're adding real skill and experience, which, is something the Dolphins need right now. And we've got Kyle Van Noy from the Patriots, who will do the same in the defensive line. We've added Jordan Howard, we've added Matt Breida. I mean, it's a solid running back tandem. They both do pretty different things. They're going to be, obviously you've got Jordan Howard going to be your first down back, and you're going to have Matt Breida taking third downs and passing downs. So, you know, really good. We've actually, in the last week or so, we have traded with the Raiders for Lynn Bowden Jr., who I think, and I think a lot of pundits reckon, is going to be one of those players that you just kind of watch just to see what they'll do. He's a bit of a utility player. He's played running back, wide receiver, and quarterback in college, and yeah, I fully expect him to, probably not this season, he'll probably be one to watch for the next couple of years, but I think a couple of years from now we'll be looking at having a pretty solid player there. We've got Fitzmagic keeping the quarterback job just now, because Tua may or may not be ready to go. Conflicting reports. Either way, I think it makes sense for Tua to sit out this season, and he'll gain a lot from watching Fitzpatrick play. But I have a prediction later on that I think has a good chance of coming true. I mean, Fitzpatrick was great in the end of the season last year, so future's looking bright. Future's looking bright. We've got 2 first-round draft picks next year as well. Great. I think I actually went off on a bit more of a rant than I intended there. I'm sorry. Right. Patriots. Garbage fire. What do you mean I can't say that? Yeah, I know they've signed Cam Newton, but right, fine. They've got Cam Newton, and he is potentially top 5 in the league quarterback-wise, if he plays to his ability. Belichick's coaching's probably worth 5 wins by itself. And, you know, they're still going to be good. They're still going to be good, but they're not going to be great. Brady's gone. They've lost, what was the last count? Was it, I think it was 7 or 8 players opting out of the season thanks to COVID. So they're not going to be nearly as good as they have been. Even with that, I think they'll still have too much for the Dolphins, who will, of course, I mean, COVID has absolutely wrecked the preseason. We're going to have no real unity going into the first couple of weeks of the season. And I think it's too much. It's at Foxborough, and I think that'll be enough for the Patriots to take it. Pats by 4. Moving on to Sunday's late games, we've got the Cincinnati Bengals taking on the LA Chargers. Now, the Bengals went 1-15 last season, 4 wins worse than the Dolphins, and they fully earned their number 1 draft pick. They were somehow worse than Washington, who were by far and away the worst team to watch. But now, they have a genuinely exciting offense. They've got Joe Burrow. They've got AJ Green back. Joe Burrow's just off the back of a 60 touchdown season at LSU. I mean, if he throws half of those touchdowns, he'll be lauded as a hero. Yeah, AJ Green will presumably be back. He missed all of last year. They've got some great speedy receivers behind him as well. They've tied up Joe Mixon. His contract was up, or looking like it was going to be a bit ropey, but they've got him tied in. Their defence, massive question marks. I don't think the offense, for all the firepower it has, I don't think it's enough to keep coming back from behind as they will have to do week on week. And I don't think they're going to win a lot of games. The Chargers, obviously they've lost Phillip Rivers. They've brought up Tyrod Taylor to start for them. They've got Justin Herbert, who was picked number 6 in the draft this year. But he is probably too raw to play at the NFL level. And I don't think he's going to see a lot of game time. Tyrod Taylor's great. Tyrod Taylor is a good quarterback. I wonder how good he'll be after a couple of years off, though. I still expect the Chargers to have too much for the Bungles. And I've got LA by 6. Could be wrong. Could be wrong. I'd like to see Cincy prove me wrong here. The 49ers, Super Bowl runners-up, will host the Arizona Cardinals. Now, last year's number 1 pick, Kyler Murray, had a pretty good season. Pretty good first year. They'd like to build on that, obviously. They've added Nick Hopkins. You know, solid. I think Kyler Murray's in for a great year this year. They've added Isaiah Simmons on the defense, who is a player I am absolutely looking forward to seeing. He plays everywhere. He's a linebacker with 4.6 40 speed. He looks like he's going to be incredible. The Niners have taken last year's team, and they seem to have made it better, which is maybe worrying. They got Javon Kinlaw, and they got Brandon Ayuk, who is, by all accounts, incredibly talented. Now, question marks for the 49ers at the running back position. They lost Matt Breida to the Dolphins. They have Tevin Coleman, who spent a lot of last year on the shelf. They have Raheem Mostert, who has had a lot of rumblings this off-season suggesting he might be a bit unsettled in the team. And they've got Jerick McKinnon. So it's probably still enough. You know, it's still a decent running back core, but, you know, they relied on their running backs a lot last season, and I don't know if they'll quite have enough to compete as well as they had last year. Either way, the Niners should beat the Cardinals. Got 49ers by 9. Again, I'd like to be wrong. I'd like to see the Cardinals do well. Next up, game of the week for me, and I suspect for a lot of people, we have the TB12-led Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus the New Orleans Saints. And genuinely, this is going to be an absolute barn burner. I'm completely looking forward to this. My Sunday night is set. I will be in front of the TV, not missing a second of this. My Sunday night. Tampa Bay are just throwing everything at the wall by the looks of it and seeing what sticks. They have a hell of a roster. Undeniable roster. They've got Tom Brady at quarterback. They've got Leonard Fournette, who's just joined. They've got Ronald Jones, that's the running backs. Evans and Godwin were they both top 10 for receiving yards last year? I think they were both top 10, and they're both back. They've added Gronk, the longest reigning ever WWE 24/7 champion. How do you go wrong with that? Aside from the fact that, you know, is Gronk going to be anywhere near as good as he was, and will he even play more than a few games? I'm not sure. I think he'll probably turn tail after a few games. We'll see. On paper, hell of a lineup. You know who else on paper has a hell of a lineup? The Saints. And they've been putting their lineup on the field more. They pretty much have a very similar roster to last year, but they've upgraded the wide receiver 2 position from Ted Ginn Jr. to Emmanuel Sanders. I'd be happy with that. That's a good move. Jameis Winston, famous Jameis, last year 5,000 yards with the Buccaneers. Now back up for the Saints week 1 against the Buccaneers. That is a strange sentence. That was a very strange sentence to type in the script when I was writing this, and it's a very strange sentence to say out loud. But it's not the story people are looking at. The story everyone will be watching is Brady versus Breeze. I've got it as highest scoring game of the week. I think it absolutely will be. And I have Drew Brees and the Saints outlasting the Bucks in a shootout. Saints by 7. The Dallas Cowboys taking on the Rams in LA at their new stadium. Cowboys have struggled this offseason to tie Dak down. Dak Prescott has been holding out for money, as he is incredibly entitled to do. He had 4,906, I think, yards last season. So he's signed a franchise tag eventually, but you know, Patrick Mahomes has just been paid $500 million. So Dak will probably come back next year and ask for even more money than he was already asking for. So Dak could go anywhere next year. And I think he's going to absolutely storm the place this year. This is going to be an absolutely humongous year for Dak, stats-wise. They've got great talent at wide receiver. He can just launch the ball 45 times a game and, 5,500 yards is easily achievable there. The Rams still have the best defensive player in the league, Aaron Donald, but they've lost a good few pieces on the offensive side of the ball in the offseason, so they could have a few struggles this year, actually. A lot of that depends on how consistent Jared Goff is going to be. I'm not sure. I've got the Cowboys by 8. I don't think that's unreasonable. Monday Night Football. 2 games this week. First up, the Pittsburgh Steelers taking on the New Jersey Giants. I'll promise I'll call them the New York Giants and New York Jets from next video. They play in New Jersey, come on. Steelers got Big Ben back, so, probably a big improvement on Mason Rudolph and Devin Hodges from last year. And the Steelers somehow pieced together with that makeshift quarterback lineup an 8-8 season. I don't quite know how they did it. Well, I do. It's the defense. They have low-key created one of the best defenses in the league. You can expect massive improvements from Juju this year, and just in general, probably a marked improvement from the Steelers overall. The Giants are rolling with Daniel Jones, so if he can hold on to the ball, there were a lot of flashes last season of him showing he's a good quarterback. But he had 18 fumbles in 11 starts. And you just can't expect that to continue and Daniel Jones to keep a job. Bold prediction here. Saquon Barkley will lead the league in rushing yards. He will be an absolute stud for the Giants, but I don't predict great things overall for the team. And just can't see past a Pittsburgh win. Steelers by 10. And closing out the round of games, last but not least, Tennessee Titans traveling to Mile High for a date with the Denver Broncos. The Titans, of course, ended up with their standard 9 wins, 7 loss season, but they went up a gear and really became probably the main story of the playoffs. So they rode the incredibly large back of Derrick Henry to a massive win against the Patriots in the wildcard round. Superb. Fantastic. Now we're up against the Ravens. Probably won't go so well. Oh, they absolutely destroyed the Ravens. So suddenly they're in the AFC Championship. What do you mean they're 10-0 ahead against the Chiefs? What on earth is happening? Okay, so they didn't win, of course. The Chiefs went on to win the Super Bowl, but for 2.5 games in the, 2.25-ish games in the playoffs, the Titans were the best team in the league. Derrick Henry had 1,652,000,000 yards in the 2.5 games or whatever. And they've kept most of their major pieces, and you'd expect they'll be a decent force in the league. But, you know, they don't seem to consistently put it down for 16 games in a row to elevate themselves past 9-7. The Broncos have been very successful this offseason. They have added massive pieces in Juwan James and Jerry Jeudy. They've got help in the defensive line with Graham Glasgow. But, and this is a humongous but, in the last couple of days, Super Bowl 50 MVP and 8-time Pro Bowler Von Miller out for the season, requires ankle surgery. So that is just an unbelievably large hole for them to fill, and there's no help really in the free agency market at the moment. So they're going to struggle with that. But with the improvements they've made, and alongside the conditions in Denver, in the last week, they've had wildfires, 90-degree temperatures, and then from one day to the next, a 50-degree temperature drop, going sub 40 degrees with snowstorms. So what the weather is going to be like come Monday night, who knows? But they'll probably have enough to trouble the Titans. And I'd like to put in my official prediction, which will end the Titans' chances of finishing 9-7 again. I'm predicting a tie. So that's going to be it for the Week 1 predictions. It's been a pretty long video. I can't believe if anyone has sat and listened to me talk for, 37 minutes. Massive thanks. I would like to sign off with a couple of season predictions. I've got the AFC champions as the Ravens, and they're going to beat the Chiefs. I've got the Seahawks winning the NFC, beating the Saints, and going on to defeat the Ravens in Super Bowl 55. And finally, this is just one for me. I've got Tua taking the starting job for the Dolphins in Week 9. And in the second half of the season, the last 8 games, he will outperform Joe Burrow in passing yards and touchdowns. I'd love to be right. I'd love to see Tua do well. I really hope he gets a few games. It's going to be a weird season, but I really feel like it's going to be an absolutely awesome season. And I'm going to do this every Thursday afternoon. Going to do my predictions. Going to be shorter from now on. I'm going to try and keep it a little more sort of precise and succinct and to the point. But I'll be here, and I hope you will be as well. Bye for now.